Is your dishwasher getting paid more than you? Because I talk to owners all the time and they're like, hey man, I've given everyone else a raise except for me and I can't even take a paycheck. I'm literally volunteering in my restaurant. Or even worse, I'm putting in personal money. So literally I am paying to volunteer at my business. If you are the one that's not getting paid in your restaurant, we've got to figure out where the biggest hole is in your bucket. We need to plug it. Let me ask you first this question. Are you a business or are you a charity? If you say charity, the podcast is not for you. If you're a business, let's dive into it. Welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator. I am your host, Andrew Scott. I am a multi-unit location owner and owner of Ownershift, which helps restaurant owners grow their sales, grow their profits, and help them have more free time for their families and even to open more locations someday. We have helped almost 1,000 people do exactly this with Ownershift. So I've got Nathan here with us today. Today we're talking about, is everyone else getting paid except for you? So it's funny, as we were talking about this, Nathan was like, yeah, man, like, is your dishwasher getting paid more than you? And how true it is, because I talk to owners all the time and they're like, hey man, like, yeah, I've given everyone else a raise except for me and I can't even take a paycheck. Like I'm literally volunteering in my restaurant. Or even worse, I'm putting in personal money. So literally I am paying to volunteer at my business. So like, how backwards is that shit? And I laugh about it, but here, let me ask you this. So for those of you guys who are listening, let me ask you first this question. Are you a business or are you a charity? If you say charity, the podcast is not for you. If you're a business, but it kind of feels like a charity, let's dive into it. So here's my 2 cents to kick us off with this, is that the reason most people pay everyone else before themselves is because they are just not making enough money. Not enough money at the end of the day. There's none left over for them. But how could that be? You're a business. I mean, Nathan, I'm sure when you started a business, you were like, yeah, man, we're going to make lots of money. It's going to be great.
We're going to be rich.
Yeah.
Rolling around in money.
Because business owners are rich. Oh, it's so funny. Someone commented on a Facebook post that I made about that. It's like, you were stupid for believing that. I'm like, yeah, I was 20 years old. Of course I was stupid. But that's the thing, right? And a lot of us get into it thinking it's going to be different than what it is. Now, sure, we can just shit on the people that have made that choice, or we can try and help them, which is what we're going to do today. So if you're in a position where you are not making enough money with your restaurant, let's dive into that. I hear this all the time. We're going to talk about some food costs, labor costs, stuff like that. But here's the other thing I hear all the time too, is that, oh, my debt load is too much. Have you ever heard that, Nathan? My debt's too much. There's too much in loan payments. And all of this is just a symptom that you're not making enough money the way your business model is currently set up, right? Because there should be enough money for you to pay your people, to pay all your bills, to pay yourself, to pay your loans, and then have some left over, and the bank account should be growing every month. If it is not doing those things, there is a problem in your business. And so what we need to do is figure out which one of those reasons it could be and then solve it, right? So we got to do. So Nathan, let's start out here. Where do we want to go first? If you were a business owner and you were like, I am not making money and my bank account's in the negative and I can't pay myself, where's the first place you look?
I mean, I think the first place that I would look would be, number one, is my business model set up in a way that I can make money? First of all, can I make enough money to pay myself, right? So take a look at a break-even analysis at, with this amount I'm going to spend for labor, at this amount I'm going to spend for cost of goods, at this amount I'm going to have to pay rent. What is my break-even point? What do my total sales need to be for me to produce a profit that will also allow me to pay myself, right? And that's the key. A lot of people, I see a lot of people do break-even analysis and they'll leave themselves out. They'll leave their pay out of that analysis because when the money comes, that's when I'll get paid. And it doesn't work that way. If you plan to not get paid, surprise, surprise, you're not going to get paid because you haven't built a model that allows for you to get paid.
Well, on that as well, people are normally doing work and somehow they are not paying themselves. So if you right now are not paying yourself, but you're still putting in full-time hours, or a lot of people are putting in double full-time hours, putting in 80 plus hours a week. And if you're not paying yourself or not paying yourself the same amount that you would actually pay someone else to do that job, then even though your numbers are looking better, it's actually hiding the fact that the model's broken.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. And if something changed tomorrow where, you could step back, you hire somebody, listen, your numbers are going to go to pot because now you have to pay somebody where you were free labor before. It just doesn't work. It is the model. So yeah, I mean, that's where I would start. As a part of that process though, right? I say that, but do we know our primes? Do we know what our labor targets are? And do we know that our labor target, needs to be set for a year and then it will fluctuate throughout the year? Just like labor and sales on a Monday are generally different than they are on a Friday. We have to understand that January sales and August sales and labor throughout those points are going to be different. How do we plan it out? And how do we ensure that we have a plan to execute targeted labor that's going to get us to that profit point, that point by the end of the year where we can actually, make money and have a net profit for the business? If that labor in January is whatever, 46% and it's 18% in July, okay, great. Have we planned that out? Have we looked at the sales, and do those labors climb and drop throughout the year to get us to the point that is our budget, which might be 25% or 30% or whatever? Is there a strategy there, and are we actually being as productive, whether that be front of house, back of house, valets, anybody you pay? How are you analyzing that productivity and building a plan to ensure that you hit that point? And here's what I mean about that when I'm talking about labor specifically, I guess, is that, I hear people say all the time, if sales don't come, we cut really hard, right? We're going to cut. Sales aren't there, we cut. Well, that is a terrible strategy. Cutting is always going to be a part of the business. 100% it's going to be there, but it cannot be the strategy. We don't schedule everybody just in case we're going to get busy and then cut real hard if we're not. Do you know what your forecasts are? Do you know what to expect for your sales? And what labor do you need to spend, and what positions do you need to have starting at what times to execute at that level? What is your dollar per man hour target for your productivity target for your employees? If those are not in place, I promise you it's not as efficient as it can be.
Yep. No, I love that. So let's go back a step. Reason why is we talked about a break even, but I'm just picturing most of our listeners here having not ever done a break even. So let's walk through how they can pretty easily do that. So number one, you want to add up all of your fixed expenses. So that means your rent, you want to add up your insurance, you want to add up your power bill, your gas, whatever those expenses are. You want to factor in things like your loan payment, just for the sake of our calculations here. That technically would be on a balance sheet, but for our purposes, let's put it on a break even, because that's going to be a cost that's going to come out from your bank account. So technically we're doing more of a cash flow break even kind of thing. But put all those things together. And then the next thing you want to do is set a sales number. So say, for example, like, what's your average sales over the last 6 months? Just average that out, put that in there. And then I want you to look at what your actual percentage of your labor expenditures were. So, okay, so out of, maybe it's $60,000 a month in sales, maybe that's $150,000 a month in sales, whatever it is, put in exactly what you spent on your labor as a percentage. So if your sales were 100 grand and you spent 40 grand on labor, that's 40%, right? So you average that out, put that in there. And then do the same thing for your food. Look at the actual amount that you spent. We're not going to worry about inventory right now, because over 6 months, that's going to pretty much even out. So just take all your expenditures for food, for your cost of goods. That includes takeout packaging, that includes all that kind of stuff, everything that's required to be able to serve that guest, and put that all there as a percentage. So again, if it's 40 grand on 100 grand of sales, that's 40%. And so what I want you to do is then you're going to have one column of all that stuff. So you're going to know roughly what your fixed expenses are, and those will fluctuate a little bit, but not a ton. Your loan payments might fluctuate a little bit over time, but not a ton. So we kind of have a general idea of what's there. So now I want you to do a couple things. Now that's one column, and literally you can do this on a little sheet of paper like this. I have handy dandy ownership labeled paper beside me. You could write down. And on the next one, what I want you to do is take your food and your labor cost, because those are the top two things that should be right under your sales, and that would be called your prime. And what I want you to do is take that, and I want you, like, say if that number is at 70% or 75%, I want you to try and cut that by 10%. So instead of 70%, make it 60%, right? And then do the math on that. Okay, out of that same amount of sales, if this cost was 60%, what would be less? Then you subtract all of your other expenses from it, and what's left at the very, very bottom. Okay, I want you to do that. Now, the next thing I want you to do is keep your prime cost where it was, say that's 70 or 70, whatever, a lot of restaurants I see run in roughly that range. So keep it there. And then I want you to increase your sales by 10%. Okay. And then I want you to do the same thing. So move your sales up 10% and then have the same percentage prime cost, and then do all the math and see what's left. See which of those is going to give you better results. Now, 9 times out of 10, reducing your prime cost is actually going to get you more money on the bottom line faster, right? So I want you to do that, because what this is basically telling you is, hey, this is where my numbers are today. If I was able to reduce my cost of goods and my labor cost, this is what my number would be. And then over here, if I put all my effort into increasing sales, this is what my number would be over here with a sales increase. Okay. And so whichever one gives you the most money, work on that one first, right? I'm not going to tell you which one it is. You can do the math on it, but 9 times out of 10, it is reducing your cost, because a penny saved is a penny earned, and it goes straight to the bottom line. So that's hugely, hugely important, because I will tell you, there's 2 things I'm going to mention here. Number one, your rent or occupancy cost, if you own the building, such as your mortgage, your insurance, all that kind of stuff, should typically be anywhere between, say, like 6 to 12% of your sales. Now, the reason why that is such an ungodly large range is because if you're a quick service restaurant, usually what we're finding is that, 8 to 12% is a more normal range, but then you have more like 6 to 8, 9% for full serves, right? So it's going to be slightly different based on your concept, but you should be somewhere in there. If you are over 10 to 12%, what I can tell you is that it will be harder for you to make net profit unless you actually add something to your pricing to comp for that, or unless you have a really high volume, but then in which case it wouldn't be over 10 to 12% anyway. So if you had $20,000 in rent every month, but your volume is 200,000, okay, no problem. But if your volume is 100,000 a month on 20,000 rent, that's a problem. So that means there's a sales issue that you need to rectify. Okay, so I want to point that out. But for most of us, our rent is already in that range. And if your rent is already in that 6 to 12% range, that typically means that it's actually a cost issue. And just by increasing your sales, sure, that'll be great, but that's actually not the fastest way to put money in your pocket. Most people run prime costs, and if you haven't done the calculations yet, literally just go last week, look at all your labor expenditures, what you actually paid out, including your payroll taxes, like literally everything you were required to spend, and then look at all of your food purchases and just add those up, divide it by your sales for that week. That will give you a number. For most restaurants, that lands, anywhere between 65 to 75%, somewhere in that neighborhood. Our target for our clients is about 55%. That's where we're trying to get them towards, because that is an extremely profitable number. And so if you are not making money right now, if everyone else is getting paid instead of you, we've got to figure out where the biggest hole is in your bucket. We need to plug it. Most of us are spending way too much on labor, spending way too much on food, and then we're trying to increase sales thinking that will solve the problem. But here's the problem. Is that then you bring in $10,000 more in sales, right? But your prime cost is 75%. That only brings $2,500, because 10,000 minus the 75% of 7,500 leaves you $2,500 that goes towards your gross profit. And then you have to minus out any expenses it took you to get the marketing, like the sales increases. Maybe you spent $1,000 or $1,500 to get that $10,000 increase. And that would be a great return on your investment, by the way. And so all of a sudden, we might be busier, but we're not necessarily more profitable. The key is that we need to make sure that we are lean first, and then we work on growing sales, because that will exponentially increase your profits. So that's my little thing. But if you do a break-even analysis, it will tell you this. The math does not lie. I had a CEO once tell me, Andrew, the numbers don't lie. And I've always kept that in my heart ever since, because the numbers tell a story, and we need to figure out what story it's trying to tell us and then change it. Because here's the other deal. Nathan, if you ever went to your accountant at the end of the year and your accountant says, hey, man, you made money, and then you're sitting there in that chair going, well, where the fuck is it?
Yeah, where is it? You said, you said I made money, but I don't see it.
It's not in my bank account. Is it in your bank account? Where is it? Or even worse, hey, you made money, so you owe, $5,000 in taxes, and you're like, but my bank account's negative. I don't have $5,000 to pay the taxes on the money that I supposedly made but never saw. And so here's the other thing we need to understand is how that happens is actually from cash flow. And so what that means is on the books, because here's what your accountant does, right? Or your bookkeeper, etc. They take the numbers, they add it all up, right? What they don't factor in is the capital repayment or the loan repayments. They factor in the interest on your loans, right? Because that's an expense. But what happens is, say at the end of the month, let's just say you made $5,000 just for easy math, but then your principal repayments on your loans were $5,000. Well, then your real cash in the bank account's zero, right? So that's where most people think that, oh man, I made money, but then where did it go? Or if you're losing money and you have to pay loan payments, sure, on your profit and loss statement, it's like negative $5,000, and then you had a $3,000 loan payment, your cash flow negative $8,000. Like that money's going to have to come from somewhere, right? So where is it coming from? And so, and the question is then what happens when we run out of money to start, putting into the business? What happens then? And so here's another thing I see is that so many people will rely on these merchant cash advances, right? They could get like $30,000 or $40,000 from their credit card company, or their POS company will send them a loan, and they're like, yeah, so we're going to give you $40,000, but you're going to have to pay us back $50,000 or something like that. Like we'll take it out daily from you. And so most people don't even do the math on what the interest rate is on that, because it's usually massive. And the problem is that most people take that out. All they do is kick the can down the road.
Yeah.
Right. So they take the money and they're like, whew, great. I'm saved for another day, just expecting that business will just naturally fix itself. So I actually did a video on this. It is okay to do merchant capital advances if you take it and then actually fix your business. But what most of us do is we take it and hope that business is magically going to fix itself. And then all we do now is that 3 months down the road, we're now in a worse position and we have to take out another one. And now we're just paying them an exorbitant amount of interest, which is not really interest the way that they structure it, but you know what I mean? Like we just end up paying them more, and we get into this cycle that we can never get out of. Hey, real quick, if you're a multi-unit restaurant owner or you're looking to become one, I've identified the 3 deadliest mistakes that are killing most restaurants right now. And more importantly, I'll show you how to avoid these exact mistakes. Just grab my free copy of the Multi-Unit Restaurant Playbook by going and clicking on the link in the description below. Inside, you'll discover my proven system for building a restaurant empire that runs on autopilot and the mistakes you must avoid if you want to stay profitable and scalable. So get the free playbook and transform your business today.
I gotta make my payroll, right? I gotta pay my people or they're gonna leave me. So I'm gonna take this crazy merchant loan, and I do say they're crazy because mostly they come off your top line. So it's like reducing your sales to get this money, but that's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, I have to make my payroll. So you take this loan, you make your payroll, but you haven't changed anything with the way that you're scheduling. You haven't changed anything permanently. All you've done is paid, whatever the interest might be, if it's 10, 20%, whatever it might be, you just paid that much more for your payroll to keep people making more money than you're making. Right? To cash those checks that you're not giving yourself.
Yeah. And that's
sounds crazy when you say it like that.
It's so frustrating because that's exactly what happens. And people then don't change. They just feel like, oh, now it's because I don't have enough cash. That's the problem. I'm going to tell you, if your business doesn't have enough cash, it's not a cash problem. Cash doesn't have a problem. Your business has a problem, that it's bleeding cash. That's why you don't have any, right? It's not that you don't have enough money. So your business isn't making enough money. So solve that problem, right? Getting capital only just plugs a hole in your boat from sinking. The water's going to find another way to come in. It's only going to hold for so long, right? You're just prolonging it. And so unless you actually take that time and fix it. Okay, actually, another analogy. Say you are on a boat and it is sinking, and what's happening is basically the water's coming in. There's a few different holes. You're in the bottom of the boat, and all of a sudden you've got this little, patch, one of those fix-it patches or whatever. Yeah, you plug one of the holes, right? But there's 10 more. And so you plug one of them, great. And just imagine you then just sit at the bottom of the boat and start watching Netflix. Just picture that. And meanwhile, there's 10 other holes that could be fixed. So here's my analogy is that if you take that time, so by plugging one hole and getting some cash, and then you go and plug the other holes and fix it, that might actually make some progress. But if you just sit there and be like, well, I plugged a hole, water's still filling up, you're still sinking. You got to keep moving. So that's only step one on how to fix it. And so that's just one thing I wanted to mention is too many people do that. They think that other things are going to fix their business, but it's not. You actually have to go out and fix it. And so number one thing, if you are not making money, first start with a break even, figure out where your money's going. If you have a profit and loss statement, that's another good thing to do. Even worse, if you don't have one of those, then just do the math manually like we just talked about. Literally just dig out a pen, paper in your bank account, start doing it. And you will start to figure some stuff out that way. So more often than not, people are overspending on their food and labor. One of the other biggest reasons why that's happened is people are hesitant to increase their prices, right? All the expenses went up, labor has went up, but if your prices haven't went up, guess what? You don't have any margin anymore. And your business is going to bleed cash. Now, everyone thinks, oh, I don't want to lose the customers I have. Fair, right? That's not what we want to do. But what I would encourage you to do is actually go out and look at all of your competition. Are you priced in the ballpark of what your competition is? Now, this is not the best way to decide your menu prices, but if you are really, really stuck and you need a quick way to do it, we also have a tool that we actually think we did a whole podcast about it. But basically, we have a whole tool that can help you do this. Just compare those in your market. But literally, all you got to do is go to a different restaurant that serves similar type food to you, see what they're pricing for similar items, and see if you're in the ballpark, right? If they're charging 18, where are you at? If you're at 16 and they're at 18, well, hey, there's a difference that you can make. And I will tell you that most people will not notice a price increase that's less than 10%. If you're charging $18 already, people aren't going to notice if you go to 19, right? If you go to $19.99, they're probably not going to notice. If you go from 18 to 27, yeah, they're going to notice that. But that's not what we're asking. Because most people also don't understand is that even if you wanted to give all of your staff like a $1 an hour raise or something like that, it actually only will take about a 3% menu increase to do that, depending on your numbers. So you don't actually have to raise your prices as much as you think you do in order to make a difference. But that is one of the easiest and simplest ways to do it. And then also looking at your scheduling. A couple of different things you could do as well here. You can make sure that you're looking at scheduling for your volume. So for example, if you're busier on Mondays, you should schedule more people on Mondays. If you're less busy on Mondays, you should schedule less people on Mondays, right? You want to go for your volume. And you also want to stagger shifts if you're not doing that already. Literally, if someone comes in at 11, instead of having everybody come in at 11 or 10 or whatever time it is, if you have a lunch service, stagger. Some people come in at 10, some people come in at 11, some people come at 11:30. Stagger that out because that's just saved labor for you. And making sure that we just have the optimal amount of people. And then you'll stagger their exit times too when your volume goes down. One of the biggest tricks you can do, that's very, very simple to do, you just want to match your staffing to your volume. If you're busiest at 12 or at 7 or at whatever time it is, you want to have the most staff there. You don't want to randomly be staffed for 2 p.m. It's probably not going to be your busiest time.
Yeah, just in case, right? And, you mentioned something there rather quickly that I see a lot in clients and I see a lot in, scheduling out there in the world. So when you said, stagger your end times, have end times, right? It can't just be you start at 4 and you're gone when we can get you out. No, how did you plan that? How did you plan what that was going to cost you? Yeah. And if you don't know when the rush is going to end, well, then I don't think you're looking at the right information. You should be able to take a look at when your rushes start to come in, when they start to taper off throughout the day, how many people you have scheduled. You can project your end times. Now, even if you project it to 8, but we are bumping at 8 o'clock and you got to keep staff a little bit longer, I get that. And that becomes a conversation with your staff. But if you don't have an end time, listen, you got to go look at your sales. You got to look at when they come and when they taper off, and you got to plan that end time. And you're looking for patterns and rhythms to your business. And if you start to see those patterns and rhythms, you can start to actually plan your business the way that Andrew's talking about. But it starts with investigating, digging around.
100%. Now, let me ask you this. For those of you, if you are not making money right now, if you're the least paid person on your team, are you actually tracking the things that matter? So let me ask you a question. So if your goal was to lose weight, do you think that you would lose more weight or less weight if you weighed yourself every day? You'd probably lose more weight if you measured yourself every day. Let me ask you this. If you tracked your food and labor numbers every single week, do you think that you would make more money? Because you know where your expenses are and then can change them because of the information you now know. The answer is yes. So if you are not doing that, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot, because all the stuff we're talking about, how are you going to know if it's effective or not? You won't. How do you know if you cut here or there, or if sales went up or down if you're not tracking any of it? So you've got to track your numbers. You've got to know where in your business model it's broken. If you're trying to reduce labor, there's a few tips we just gave you on that. If you're trying to reduce food cost, another one I would start to do is the simplest one I've always found is look at your portioning and your ordering. Two things. Portioning, I usually go there first, because at least with inventory, some of it will last. Like, it's not going to be like, it's money out of your bank account right away. But at the end of the day, like, not everything spoils right away. You have a little bit of time, especially if you deal with some frozen products and stuff like that. So that's why I go to portioning first, because once it's gone out to the customer, it's gone. And so we want to know, okay, what is the portion? Say if you're serving a burger, okay, is it supposed to be a, 3-ounce patty? Supposed to be I don't know. You tell me. What is it supposed to be? And then was it actually? And I totally intended that to rhyme. So, but we need to know what it's supposed to be and then what it actually is going out, because there could be variance in that. Maybe one of your staff members all of a sudden is just making things a lot different. Maybe the person who is prepping those burgers in advance, maybe they're prepping the patties earlier, and all of a sudden the scale wasn't tiered properly, right? That's going to be a big thing. So here's a few things that we did. So again, my focus was in quick service restaurants. A couple of things we did is we literally, it was all customized too. So we would do a little order form, like came in like an online order. We would get every one of our staff members to make the exact same order on shift. And I would go to them different times. I'd say, hey man, can you make this order real quick and then send it to me? I wrote their name on it and I put it in the fridge. At the end of the shift, we went and we weighed every single one of them. And who'd have known, like I made a control one, which ended up being like, I forget the exact numbers of exactly what it was, but one person's was literally double what everyone else's was. It was like a full pound, and it was supposed to be like half that of size. We literally weighed them all. And I was like, buddy, like if that's how you make every single sandwich, no wonder my food cost had skyrocketed, right? Because this dude's just like handful and everything. And then this sandwich was like the size of a football. I'm like, how's someone even going to eat that? So like, I just literally went and looked at what everyone was doing. And I tested it because they all put the same ingredients on, same thing. It was just their interpretation of how it should be done. So I was just assessing how close to the standard we were, and then we could sort out training from there. But another thing that we do is just watch people, right? Just watch what they do. I know, Nathan, we've talked about literally having portion scoops, because if they don't have the right portion scoop in the container, in the Cambro, it's probably not going to use. They're just going to use your hands, right? Yeah. So like little things like that make all of the difference, especially on your highest price stuff, like your proteins, your cheeses, like those are more expensive stuff, right? And that's where you need the quality control. Another thing we used to do is we would pre-prep all of our meats in little containers. So just for easy for use, because we knew it was supposed to be a certain amount of ounces. And so we just toss it on the grill and go. So we would do that in advance, but we also had our managers go back and check Every day they had to pull out one Cambro of each type of product, and they were all initialed, so we knew who prepped it. But we went back and we just double checked it to make sure it was accurate. And if it wasn't, we had them go back and redo it, because that's an easy way. Yeah.
Line checks to check for scoops, to check portion sizes, to check stock levels, quality. I mean, it's another one of those points where if you're not looking, it's going to go sideways on you. And those, those cooks or those dishwashers, they're going to get paid. And you know who's not?
You
get paid. So it's in your best interest to have a system, a process to inspect it, to ensure, trust but verify that these systems are in place. The only thing I would say to all of that is, I know when you sit and you say, we're gonna portion out all the meat. The meat goes into all these containers. I'm sure there's somebody listening to this who says, I can't pay somebody 8 hours a day to portion out all of my protein, because they're gonna have a bucket. They're gonna take a little bit out, put it on a scale, put a little bit more on the scale. Oh, it's too heavy. Put a little bit back, and then take that portion and put it in a bag. And it's like, no. There are far better techniques than that to get gross bulk portioning done more efficiently. Things like reverse scaling, or even using scoops to portion, then those portions go on the line.
Yep.
So listen, if you're sitting there saying it's not worth it to do the portioning, I'll lose more in labor than I will in the product. I'm just here to tell you that there is a solution to all of it. In my restaurants, and we do everything from scratch. There are very few things that are just done by hand or by eye. Most of them, if it's nuts on a salad, it's a spoon that we've portioned out, that we've ensured is the right size spoon. It's all of these things. But I would even throw this out to you. So, when you said that you made the control sandwich, let's say you made it and you made it perfectly. Of course you did, right? Because you're the owner and you're like, this is how it needs to be. I used to do this with salads in my restaurants. Is we would actually weigh one out before a rush, make a perfect salad. Because listen, I'm a busy restaurant. They are not weighing salad every time they build a salad, but we would build one, a control, and we would put it right on the station. And we're going to waste that salad by the end of the shift, by the way. We're going to throw this away, but it's going to sit there for the whole rush as a visual aid, where it's like, yes, you are going to hand portion the lettuce, but it needs to look like this. Never would they build it twice as big and have it go out, because it's right there as a visual aid. So those are the kinds of things to consider when it comes to portioning and execution, is how do we make it foolproof, efficient, clear, and eliminate or minimize our risk of loss when it comes to portion, inconsistencies, let's say. If you need help with that, honestly, I could give you a list of like 200 different ways to think about portioning. There are solutions.
Well, and what I was going to say there too is something that we see a lot is our clients are like, yeah, but like, I know I do it perfectly. Like I know, and I'm there. Like I do it well, or I have great customer service. And so if you are the one that's not getting paid in your restaurant, I would say to you, yes, you may be doing things the way that you want it done, but you're not the only one that's there most often, right? There's other people that work as well. And so it's not about you doing it correctly. I want you to get out of that mindset, because you are operating a business, and a business is a sum of more than one person. So all of your team, the question we start having to ask is your team doing things the way that you want it done? And so you might be portioning it properly with the method you have. You might be portioning it properly with your hand, but is everyone else? Is their hand bigger than your hand, right? Are they grabbing more? Are they doing 2 handfuls instead of 1? Oh, well, no, of course they wouldn't do that. Well, watch and find out, right? Because this is the whole trust but verify thing. Because even if we know the standards of what should be there, if no one ever checks it, you don't know if it's happening. And I will tell you, every single time we've had a client do this, go in and actually start looking at what's happening when they're not there and setting up a system around it, their numbers go down. Same thing when we talk about ordering and inventory. When they actually start tracking what they're ordering week over week and noticing, hey, I always have these 2 cases of tomatoes left over. Maybe we only need, 1 case of tomatoes, as a backup instead of the 2 that we have, right? Maybe I don't need to order this same amount of chicken that I always order, because that's just what I've always done. We actually have to start looking at our ordering based on our usage, right? And if your restaurant is bursting from the seams, because I've seen this so much, I'll have a manager take over ordering, and literally within 2 weeks, all of a sudden the shelves are bursting. And I'm like, the hell are you doing? And they're doing it because I don't want to run out of stuff. I don't want to run out of stuff, because they don't have a system to track what they've ordered and how much is actually left over to be able to set their PARs properly. And so that's one of the things that I want to make sure we're doing, is that there could be thousands of dollars sitting on your shelves right now. Are you really going to use everything? And the question we have to do when we're ordering is thinking like, hey, am I going to use this by the time my next order comes in? Right. And so the key is having a system that we built up. And actually, it's a tool that Nathan's designed, which has worked really, really well for our clients. But just to make sure that we're not wasting, because like, think of it, if you have money sitting on your shelves, it's not in your bank account. And when there's no money in your bank account, your vendor got paid, but guess who didn't? You. So all of these things add up to you not having money coming to you because the money is going somewhere else. So if you're looking for ways to make more money, you've got to follow the trail, follow the money. Where is it going? Because it's going everywhere else than into your pocket. And so here's another thing that I did when I was broke and almost getting kicked out of my apartment because I was late on my rent because I couldn't afford to pay my own rent and my business's rent at the same time. Here's what I did. I went through every single expense in my bank account, every single expense on the profit and loss statement. And I went through and I said, okay, is this making me more money? And so I'll give you an example, like some marketing stuff we did. Yes, I knew that was bringing me in more money, but then I looked at something like, our walk-in maintenance and repairs because our compressor went down. Was that making me more money? No. So then the second question I asked was, is it absolutely necessary? And yes, it was absolutely necessary, because if we didn't have a walk-in, well, that would make things difficult to run a restaurant. So it was absolutely necessary. But the thing is, first, is it making me more money? Because you would not believe the amount of times people actually cut the stuff that are making the money. I had a client that was literally making like an extra $8,000 a month from the marketing we were doing with them. And they're like, oh, we should cut our marketing. And I'm like, what's the matter? What's the matter with you? Like, you're spending $1,000 and making $8,000. So like, if someone showed up with a bag of $7,000 in cash to your restaurant, you'd be like, no, I would rather not have that $7,000 in cash, sir. Go away. No, we wouldn't do that. So we have
$1,000. Get out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I could trade $1,000 for $7,000, I would do that all day long and twice on Sundays. So the thing is, we need to make sure we're not cutting the things that are actually making us money, number one. But then number two, if it's not making us more money, is it absolutely necessary? So this, magazine subscription I had that I'd signed up for years ago, and, I thought our customers liked having these little magazines. Nobody ever read them. So I cut that, I went back to my telephone provider and tried to negotiate a better deal for what we were doing. But, so if we had it and it was absolutely necessary, I then looked at, is there a way that we can make it cheaper? Is there a different plan, a different service? All of those things. And I got right down to the nitty gritty, because I knew a penny saved is a penny earned, right? So long as it's not the thing that's making us more money, in which case a penny saved is actually a penny lost. You know what I mean? So what we have to do is make sure that we're cutting the right things, but that we're going down and we're not spending in places that we shouldn't be. Now, this is a very common thing because expenses are like fingernails and they do need to be trimmed periodically. So we need to continually do this every 6 months, every year. But if you are wondering where the money's going, the best thing to do is go and follow the money. It's all in your bank account. It's in your profit and loss statements. It's in your expenses. You just haven't done the math to go and figure out where it's going and then make the changes you need to make it better. And until you do this, you will continue to be the lowest paid person in your business. And that is not fair to you. That is not fair to your family. I was in a position like that once where I felt, man, I'm real good at making other people money. I'm great at making Cisco money. I am great at making my veggie supplier money. I am great at making the bank money because I always paid my loans on time and everything. I'm great at making other people money. Now, where's my money? Mm-hmm. And so I had to go back and figure out, where is it going? Because most restaurants don't die because of one particular issue or another. They die from 1,000 cuts in their bank account. That's where they die.
Well said. That's what does it.
Awesome. Well, guys, it's been a pleasure. If you are the only one that is not getting paid in your restaurant. I hope that changes. If you need more help with this, we will be more than happy to hop on a call with you and talk more about it and get you on a path to move forward. And the average client for us, they don't experience that. We get them up to 15% profit margins and beyond, and they actually take more vacations, have more money in the bank account, and we just see it every day. So I hate to see people struggling, because I was there too. Nathan has been there, and our mission is to help you guys not have to go through the same things that we did. So if you're in that position, just go to the show notes, book in a call with us. Be happy to chat with you. And but until then, I hope this is valuable, and I hope that this puts more money in your pocket and takes some stress out of your life. This episode is brought to you by Ownership Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description, and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.